This is the continuation of Luminous by Sokka's first fangirl on AO3. This is Chapter 9, titled The Blood Moon Rises Once Again. Link spent the rest of the day in a stupor. Simon tried to distract him with the compendium and the Sheikah sensor, explaining how it worked and taking Link out to search for sunshrooms in the forest behind Hateno, but it didn't help. Purah explained how to strengthen the runes. Link summoned the ancient parts he'd gathered from the slate and dumped the rest from his enchanted bag onto the table. Purah gave him an anxious glance, but confirmed there were enough parts to update the bomb rune. She got to work and suggested that Link take a walk around the village. "Your family was from here originally," she admitted. "I don't know if you ever lived here, but your parents did. Maybe take a look around?" She gathered up the parts and started tinkering with the slate, examining the guidance stone. "Fresh air might do you good. Just be back by sundown, okay?" "I'm not an invalid," Link said, but promised to be back by sundown, and away he went. Link lit the rest of the blue flame lanterns. He'd visited the clothing shop. Nothing he wanted or needed, but Sophie was kind and even more awkward than Link, and the local kids nearly knocked him over as they played tag. He looked at the dye shop. Sage sure was something, and wondered if another memory would hit from nowhere. Nothing happened. Link wasn't sure if he was disappointed or not. Then he saw the show houses. They reminded him of doll houses, brightly colored, blocky. They certainly didn't blend in with the rest of Hateno's buildings. They stuck out even more than the lab. Link wouldn't call them ugly, but they just weren't to his taste. The brightly colored bulletin board announced they were Bolson Construction Show Homes. Ask Bolson for details. Behind the show homes was a small bridge leading to another house. It looked old, really old. Link could see two construction workers taking hammers to it. It was a long building, only one story with a crooked chimney. It was on its own patch of land. No other houses were near it. The only thing of note nearby was a shrine. It wasn't an impressive building, but Link's heart skipped a beat. Before he knew it, he was running across the bridge. Every instinct screamed that the house must not be harmed. "What are you doing?" Link demanded of the nearest worker. He was young, not much older than Link, a tall Hylian with brown hair and eyes. "Huh?" He paused, hammer still raised. "What's it look like, bud? I'm working." "I mean, with the house." "Oh, well, we're demolishing it. The village had a vote and agreed to knock it down. It's super old," the worker said. "Carson." The other worker looked up from his spot further down the wall. He was older, stockier, with a bushy mustache and a truly woeful bowl-cut hairstyle. He and the younger guy, Carson, apparently, wore the same blue uniform. "What are you doing?" "Talking," Carson said cheerfully. He gestured to Link with his hammer. "We've got company, Hudson." Hudson peered at Link. "You'd better take a few steps back, kid," he said. "This is an active construction site. I wouldn't want you to get hurt." He paused, stroked his mustache, and said, "Well, active deconstruction site, I guess." "Don't knock it down," Link said, and even he could hear the pleading edge in his voice. He wasn't sure why it mattered so much. He had no memories of this house, but it felt familiar. Purah said his parents lived in Hateno once. Had they lived here? Or was Link grasping at straws? Hudson looked increasingly curious. Carson gave Link a bemused smile, like he was expecting a prank. "I'll buy it," Link said. He looked at the old house, at the gaping holes left by Carson and Hudson's hammers. The door was missing. The garden was an overgrown mess of weeds. One of the windows was smashed, the plaster was chipped, the paint was faded. All in all, the house was derelict, a total mess, and Link wanted it desperately. Hudson's eyebrows rose so high they disappeared behind his hair. "Better talk to the boss, then," he said, jerking his head towards the back of the house. As Link headed for the back of the house, he could hear Hudson and Carson exchanging whispers behind him. Ahead of him, he could hear someone quietly singing, With love, courage, and hopeful hearts, we give every house a new start. Bah, bah, Bolson. Bah, bah, Bolson. The name again is Bolson. Yeah, yeah. Bolson Construction. Da, da, da. Bolson. Da, da, da. Bolson. Hoo, wah, sha, ding. Link turned the corner to find the final construction worker, the boss, an older man, tall and spindly. He was balding. His remaining hair, and surprisingly shiny beard, was gray. His pants were bright pink, along with the matching hairband. Like Hudson and Carson, he wore a blue shirt, but his was trimmed with fur. He wasn't taking a hammer to the wall. He was holding a huge portfolio of blueprints. Link got a glimpse of more dollhouse-looking buildings, and a muscular statue of the boss. Okay, then. Are you the boss? Link asked. The boss looked up. Bolson? That's the name he was singing. Well, hello there, he said. What are you doing here, kiddo? We're not hiring right now. Link shook his head. No, I don't want a job, he said. He pointed to the house. I want to buy this house. Bolson looked even more dubious than Hudson had. He closed his portfolio and set it down on the grass. He approached Link with surprising grace in his steps. Look, honey, he said, I get it. I do. Times are tough. Finding a combination is hard. But you don't want this condemned old thing. We've instructions from the mayor himself to knock it down. Bolson looked at the house with pursed lips, clearly judging its old-fashioned design and derelict state. It's an old eyesore. They say the old owner went to report for work at the castle and never returned. And then, well, the calamity hit, so it's unlikely anyone's coming back for this. He turned back to Link, his gaze surprisingly sympathetic. You out on your own? Honey, we've got brand new show homes just over there. I can get Carson to give you a tour of them and... Link vehemently shook his head. I want this one, he said firmly, fists clenched. His heart was pounding. Did his parents work at the castle? Where did they live after they left Hateno? Where did they go? They never came back. Maybe Link was wrong. Maybe this house had nothing to do with him. He wanted it anyway. Bolson looked him up and down, hands on his narrow hips. I'll be blunt with you, kiddo. It'd be 50,000 rupees to fix this place up. Think you can manage that? Link had 500 rupees to his name. His heart sank at 50,000, but he nodded anyway. He'd do it, somehow. He'd mine like crazy for ore, kill monsters for their parts, hunt and gather to sell supplies. Anything. Bolson's expression changed from sympathetic and a little condescending to impressed. Well, well, he said. Get a load of young moneybags. He looked from Link to the house and back again. Tell you what, honey, I'll cut you a deal. You get me 30 bundles of wood, and I'll knock the price down to 3,000 rupees. He winked at Link. Consider it a discount. You remind me of me. Link couldn't imagine what they'd have in common, but he'd gladly take it. Carson, Hudson, Bolson called. Break time, boys, and no more deconstruction. He smiled at Link. Looks like we'll be fixing this old dump up. Link didn't quite manage to smile, but he rushed for the forest behind Hateno. He'd get 30 bundles of wood in no time. On his way into the wood, Dance, the farmer, asked for a favor. Since you're in there anyway, little man. Apparently, there was an overpopulation of deer, ruining the woods and creeping into the farm. Link hunted them. Dance paid him 100 rupees. His daughter, Koyan, approached Link with a scowl and glared at the ground as she asked Link to help take out the monster camp on Hateno Beach. I'll pay you, she promised gruffly, but they keep killing my sheep and no one else will help, so... Link gathered the wood and went in search of the monster camp on the beach. He made a mental note to check out the shrine by the old house once he was done. It was a good enough distraction. Dorephan waited anxiously for Sidon to return. Muzu occasionally still muttered that Sidon and his friends better not return with the Sheikah. Sagan and Trello echoed the sentiment. Dorephan sighed, leaning back against his throne. His dear, stubborn friends. Their grief led to anger, and that anger clouded their judgment. Surely, the safety of their domain was more important than a one-sided grudge. The calamity was a tragedy. Mifa's loss was a tragedy. But it was no one's fault. If Zelda had just done her duty, Muzu once ranted, none of this would have happened. Muzu, Dorephan snapped back harshly. If you expect me to blame this tragedy on a child, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. No one knew how Hylia's power manifested. You cannot blame her for following the instructions she was given. Very well, Muzu grudgingly agreed. His eyes flashed. The blame lies at the feet of King Rome and the Sheikah. Their arrogance led to this. No matter how often Dorephan said he didn't blame the Sheikah or Rome, nothing changed Muzu's mind. Indeed, many of the older Zora shared the same view. Dorephan supposed it was easier to find someone to blame when tragedy struck. Easier to say it was someone's fault rather than admit it was pure bad luck. Simpler to blame people, mortals like the rest of them, than admit it was all Calamity Ganon and his unimaginable power. Power they simply couldn't stand against in the end. Dorephan was snapped out of his musings as Baz returned from his patrol, looking harried. "Your Majesty," he said, "I found a Yiga on the path to the domain." Muzu sucked in his breath, and Dorephan tensed. "A Yiga?" Dorephan demanded. "Yes, Your Majesty. He was disguised as a traveler, pretending to have lost his way. When I was close enough, he shed his disguise and—" Baz looked troubled. He demanded to know if I had information on the hero. He demanded to know where Link was. I beat him back, but he used one of those damn Yiga tricks to disappear before I could apprehend him. "Link," Dorephan repeated. "They want to know of Link, but he's still in the shrine, still safe and hidden on the Great Plateau." But nearly 3 weeks ago, Sheikah towers appeared all over Hyrule. Sidon had excitedly asked if it was a sign, if it meant Link was awake. Muzu had dismissed the idea, believing it was another Sheikah experiment. Dorephan, troubled, had to admit that he didn't know what the towers meant. The towers appeared, and now this, a Yiga foot soldier, demanding the whereabouts of his son. He could be anywhere, Dorephan realized. Oh, curse those monsters, curse Ganon. All those years, Dorephan had guards around the Great Plateau. Of course, as soon as the monster numbers grow, as soon as Vah Ruta reigns, as soon as Dorephan had to call them all home, then Link wakes up. He had no guide, no one to explain things to him. If his memory was gone, as Impa once feared, where would Link go? Who would help him? "Go to Sidon and the others," Dorephan ordered. "Tell them to be on the lookout for Link, and to be wary of any travelers, especially those claiming to be lost or hiding in the shadows." "Yes, Your Majesty," Baz said, bowing. "And then—" Dorephan paused. "And then what? Then send soldiers to search all of Hyrule?" "Well, there was one place to start, one contact to use. Then I will send delegates to Kakariko Village to speak with Lady Impa," Dorephan said. Muzu made a disgusted noise, but Dorephan could see the distress in his face. Reality was sinking in for his old friend. Their prince, more than likely an amnesiac, was alone. He could have wandered all the way to Death Mountain. He could still be on the Great Plateau. He could be in Kakariko, and Hebra, and Akala. He could unknowingly be on his way here to the domain. Dorephan had vowed all those years ago to not leave Link alone. He intended to keep that promise. In the distance, Ruta bellowed. The heavy rains continued to fall. Their dam continued to fill. They needed to act fast, or Link may not have a home to return to. Baz left swiftly, off in search of Sidon. Soon, whispers of Yiga activity would spread through the domain. One more thing to worry about. As for the delegation to Kakariko, Dorephan had better choose from the younger generation. No point in sending anyone who'd merely start an argument with the Sheikah. That was the last thing they needed. Dorephan sighed, rubbing his forehead. He'd been suffering from a headache ever since Ruta began to reign, and like the rain, his headache hadn't stopped. Once upon a time, Mifa fussed whenever Dorephan had a stress headache. She always insisted on helping him. Was she watching now from the sacred realm? Watching them? Watching Link? He hoped she wasn't too worried. "My king," Muzu sounded hesitant, a far cry from his usual confident tones. Do you truly think Prince Link is awake? What if the Yiga are simply overzealous?" Dorephan couldn't imagine the Yiga wasting their time, exposing themselves and coming all the way to Linnaeus if they weren't sure their greatest adversary was active once again. The question remains, how did they know? Had the towers been all the warning they needed? Had someone seen Link? "Yes, Muzu," Dorephan said. "I do." His son was awake. Gods knew what condition he was in, but he was somewhere out there, and Dorephan needed to bring him home. Ruta and Link, two seemingly impossible problems to solve, but perhaps, with Link's help, they could soothe Ruta. Dorephan looked at Muzu from the corner of his eye. Oh, his dear old friend would not like the plan forming in Dorephan's mind. Muzu excused himself and went to Mifa and Link's statue in the domain square. Dorephan rubbed his forehead, willing the headache to vanish, or at least lessen. The rains continued. His dear domain remained under threat. Monster numbers grew, and more of Ganon's power spread from the castle, as Zelda struggled to contain him. Hyrule itself faced more disaster. Yet hope grew in Dorephan's heart. His son was out there somewhere, awake at last. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Simon came and found him. "Purah's been worried sick," Simon told him, like a disappointed parent. He looked Link up and down and winced, biting his thumbnail. Link knew he looked a mess. His hair had nearly entirely collapsed from its ponytail, and black monster blood stained his hair and clothes. "You promised to be back by sundown." "Sorry," Link said dully, sitting against the shrine. The Miyam Agana shrine. The monk's voice inside called it an apparatus trial. It had been so frustrating that Link had screamed and kicked the apparatus, but he got it eventually. And once he was freely outside, he sat down and tried to rein his emotions back in. Between the memory of his wedding, the ever-growing knowledge that almost everyone he'd ever loved was dead because of his fuck-ups, and the stupid shrine, Link felt like punching something. Alas, he'd already killed the monsters for Cohen, so there was nothing left to fight. He dropped the 30 bundles of wood off with Bolson. "Ooh, you're a little ball of determination, kid," and came back here to try and calm down. Between anger and apathy, maybe he'd better get back to apathy. "Come on," Simon said with a sigh. "Back to the lab. You need a bath. Besides, Purah wants to show you something." She'd been tinkering with the slate, trying to upgrade the bomb room. Link wondered if she'd managed it. A large part of him felt certain she had. It was odd believing in her capabilities so much when he didn't remember her. Link followed Simon back to the lab, ignoring how the villagers gawked at Link's blood-stained appearance. Simon, however, tensed and got awkward under all the attention. He picked up the pace, clearing his throat uncomfortably. The second the door to the lab opened, Purah threw a book at his head. "What part of sundown did you not get?" she shrieked. "Don't scare me like that, dumbass!" Her hair was disheveled, her eyes were red-rimmed, and her cheeks were flushed. Link immediately felt guilty. "Sorry," he mumbled, looking at the ground. "You'd better be," Purah snapped. She stomped over and threw her arms around him in a tight hug. "Ugh, you sting like monsters." She didn't give him a chance to respond. She grabbed his hand and dragged him towards the table. "Anyway, check it. New and improved bomb room, and..." Purah's smile grew. She opened a new screen. A new rune with a mouth symbol. She pressed a symbol on the screen, and Simon's voice came out of the slate. "My name is Link. I use sign." "Ta-da!" Purah cheered. Not everyone understands sign, and this'll save you some trouble. Next time someone doesn't understand what you're saying, just use this. We've recorded a few sentences. She pressed the next symbol, and Simmons' voice spoke again. I'm looking for Divine Beast La Meadow. Got basic questions in here, Purah continued. Directions and stuff, questions about the Divine Beasts, stable utilities. You got any requests? We can record some more. And we recorded just a bunch of words for you to make your own sentences, but they don't sound as smooth. You did all that? Link asked quietly. You did all that for me? He wanted to ask. Duh, Purah said. Easy as click snap. I had the idea before the calamity, but... She shrugged. Well, you know. So, what you think, Linky? Link hugged her so hard he lifted her right off the floor. Purah giggled and clung to him like a monkey. You're brilliant, Link said. He felt ridiculously tearful and glanced at Simon. Both of you. Simon inclined his head in acknowledgement, smiling. Purah seemed content to stay where she was for the moment. Until... But seriously, Linky, you need a bath. Fair enough. Purah had one more surprise when Link came back from the bath. He had to borrow a pair of Simon's clothes while he cleaned up his own. Simon was scribbling notes and mumbling to himself. Purah was holding a bundle of sky blue fabric to her chest. It's yours, she said, oddly shy, and held it out to him. It was a tunic, lined with white at the sleeve cuffs, hem, and neckline. A pattern around the neck, creeping down the chest, looked like a sword. On the table was a white undershirt with long sleeves. The sleeves had a colorful pattern of green, orange, and soft yellow. Mine? Link asked. Yep, Purah said, popping the pea. Had to fix it up a bit, but hey, it's good as new, right? Link took it. It was surprisingly soft. You and the champions had matching gear, Purah said. It was basically your uniform. You had your tunic, Rivali had his scarf, Urbosa had her skirt, Daruk and Mifa had their sashes. Zelly made them. She tapped the sword pattern. The others had their divine beasts, and you had the master sword. Where is it? Honestly, Purah sighed, I don't know. One more thing to worry about. That mysterious master sword was important, and Link had lost it, or it had been taken. But he had to worry about the divine beasts first. Link shrugged off Simon's borrowed shirt and pulled on the new white undershirt and champion's tunic. Purah let out a startled laugh as he casually pulled the shirt off, and Simon said, Your Highness! In a scandalized voice. The tunic fit perfectly. Link didn't feel like any sort of prince or champion, but as Purah ushered him towards a narrow mirror, he was starting to look the part. His voice died and he shuddered. Something was wrong. He didn't know what, but something was wrong. He felt nauseous, and the air felt too hot. It felt like something heavy was pressing down on him. Linky! Purah's voice was sharp with panic. Link could smell sulfur. What's wrong? Don't you feel that? Link asked, panicked. Feel what? Through the window, Link could see red sparks in the air. Wisps of black smoke rose from the ground, floated through the air. The clouds were turning red. That, Link gasped. He pushed past her and Simon and ran to the window. The moon was full and red as blood. Ah, crap, Purah muttered. Midnight struck and Link doubled over in pain. It felt like someone was wringing his insides, like all the air was punched from him. The smell of sulfur grew, and the entire sky flooded red. The smoke and embers grew thicker. Link, Zelda said. Link, can you hear me? I'm here, Link thought. His nails dug into the windowsill as he fought to stay upright. Ganon's power grows, Zelda sounded exhausted. His strength reaches its peak under the hour of the blood moon. Under its glow, the spirits of slain monsters return to flesh. Link's blood ran cold. All those monsters he'd fought and killed on the way here. The monsters on the plateau, the monsters on the road to Dueling Peaks, the monsters under Kakariko Bridge, and the monsters on Hateno Beach. They were all back? It's a stalemate, he thought, eyes wide. Yes, Zelda said sadly. An eternal stalemate. I'm sorry, my friend. Please, you must be on your guard. Be careful. There was a roaring noise. Zelda gasped, and then she was gone. It felt like a door being slammed shut, locking Link out. The moon slowly turned white. The sky was dark again, the stars shining. The temperature lowered and returned to normal, and the smell of sulfur slowly vanished, and Link could breathe again. What the hell was that? Purah demanded. Your Grace, are you well? Simon fussed. Perhaps you should lie down. You couldn't feel that? Link asked. It felt like his strength was being drained. It felt like the earth itself was crying out in pain. No, Purah said, shaking her head. Her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open. Wait, you freaked out before the blood moon rose. Linky, you can sense the blood moon? Link looked out the window at the clear sky. The full red moon was replaced by a silver crescent. It looked beautiful, like Horus hadn't just been re-released into the world. I guess so, he murmured. Well then, that was new and awful. Was it a champion thing or a chosen hero thing? Zelda, Link asked. Are you still there? No answer. The blood moon is not always predictable, Simon mused, stroking his little pointed beard. It could prove useful. A warning. If you're traveling at night, you'll know when to stop and find somewhere safe. It was an alarm bell Link could do without. It wasn't a pleasant sensation. He turned to Purah. What do you need for the slate, to finish upgrading it? 3 ancient cores, Purah answered promptly, though she still looked anxious, peering at Link closely like she was worried he'd faint. He didn't think he could go near a guardian any time soon, but maybe the shrines would have ancient cores, or the little guardian-like robots could contain them. Link went to the slate and opened the entry log. For Purah, 3 ancient cores, he wrote. Check shrines. No guardians. Divine beasts. Varuta, Mifa, Varudania, Daruk, Vamedo, Rivali, Naboris, Urbosa. Zora's Domain, Goron City, Rito Village, Gerudo Town. Free Zelda. Kill Ganon. Memories. Visit location in pictures. See what might trigger a memory. 3,000 rupees for Bolson. Remember to visit Impa or she'll ground me. Watch out for Yiga. Master Sword. Where is it? Link took a deep breath and held the slate to his chest. Focus, he told himself. You need to stay focused. Linky? Purah's voice was quiet. Link spun around to face her, shoulders back, chin up. He prayed he looked certain when he felt anything but certain. Zora's Domain is closest, he said. Yeah, Purah agreed, looking bewildered. I'll find 3 ancient cores for you, Link promised. And I'll be back, but tomorrow. After you see Purah, Impa said. Well, I will not tell you where to go first. But I think your family's waited long enough to see you again. Don't you? Tomorrow, I'm going to Zora's Domain, Link announced. Thanks so much to anybody who listens to this. As always, I'll leave a link in the description for the original fic over on AO3. Please go leave kudos and comments for the original author over there. I will be back with the next chapter as soon as possible.